Your Humanities Half-hour is brought to you by the Northern Marianas Humanities Council, navigating the human experience together.
Hapade, Tiro, and welcome to your Humanities Half Hour. I'm Catherine Perry, and today we are having one of our interviews in a series with former Peace Corps volunteers who served here in the Marianas. Our guest today is James Peter. Jim, welcome back to SciPad.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
You were here from 1970 to 1972. What were your first impressions about the island when you got here then?
My first impression, we arrived in the middle of the night, and we were staying in little plywood buildings built behind Hopwood Junior High. And because of the time change, I woke up about 5 in the morning, and another guy who was sleeping in the same building as I was also woke up, and we decided to go for a swim, because of course the ocean was right there, and I'd never swam in the ocean before. So we got our masks and fins and swam all the way out to the reef. And we got out there, and next thing we knew, there was a shadow around us. And we looked around, and there was this fish, and he was going like this, with his mouth going up and down. Then there was another one, and it was 2 barracuda who were examining us to see if they wanted us for lunch. we turn around. I was a swimmer in college, a competitive swimmer. I don't think I ever swam that fast. We went back in. And during the 28 months I was here, those were the only barracuda I ever saw.
Wow, how big were they?
They were about 3.5 feet long.
Wow, inside the reef.
Yeah.
They were inside the reef.
We were right at the edge of the reef. We didn't cross.
Yeah. Wow. So you came here, you were teaching you started off teaching at Marianas High School. What was the school like back then?
It's hard to remember. It was a long time ago. I had to walk there every day. I was living in Olei Village, and I walked down there every day. I remember where my classroom was. I remember it was a very diverse student body. Diverse in the sense that there were kids from many different islands in Micronesia, and one young woman from Vietnam. And there, I was teaching English initially, and U.S. history. I don't know why it was U.S. history. I think it probably should have been Micronesian history, but I wouldn't have been qualified to do that because I didn't know any Micronesian history.
Yeah.
The English level of the students really varied, from some who were virtually fluent to others who it was their third language. And they were clearly second or language learners and needed help. But the curriculum we were working on was TESOL, Teaching English as a Second Language, and it was aimed at the lower level students.
Yeah.
And so it was a challenge to try to give them something that was meaningful and didn't bore them to death.
Right, especially some being fluent in English and some not.
That's right.
What were the students like in those days? Would you say they were well behaved, or what was the classroom
There
like?
were normal teenagers. I didn't find, for the most part, any misbehavior. They were just pretty good kids. Yeah, normal teenagers, raging hormones. You know what teenagers are like, but. Generally, no real behavior problems.
What did you learn about the local culture from your students?
I don't know about from my students. Part of Peace Corps training was learning about local culture as well as local language. So we learned a little bit of Chamorro and a little bit of Rafalawash, not enough to be fluent, but it wasn't necessary on Saipan because most everybody had a little bit of English or a lot of English, depending on who they were. People on Saipan were very friendly, and we were often invited to fandangos or other parties or cultural events. I did learn one thing. About the second or third week we were here, it was Liberation Day. And I have some pictures that I took still on my phone of that Liberation Day parade in July 1970. And naive me, I thought Liberation Day was the day the people of Saipan were celebrating the defeat of the Japanese by the American Army. Little did I know that they were celebrating the release from the concentration camps that the U.S. Army had kept them in until 1946. Yeah.
What were some of the things that you guys enjoyed doing as Peace Corps volunteers in your leisure time, other than swimming with barracudas?
Swimming without barracudas. Well, as Peace Corps volunteers, we didn't have any money. They paid us $120 a month, which was just enough to live in the village and get by. So there was really, you could go to Matsumoto's theater. You remember Matsumoto's theater?
Yes.
Yeah, and you could go there and watch a Filipino movie and listen to people popping their gum during the during the movie. We went swimming a lot, snorkeling a lot, doing the things you could do that were free. My house was in Oleai Village, and it needed some upkeep, so I did work around the house and work in the yard to keep the grass cut down. And sometimes I borrowed my neighbor's goat to help me keep the grass down, the chiba.
Good idea.
And he would, I'd tie the goat up to a tree on about a 30-foot long rope, and when I'd come home from work, the goat would have gone around the tree so many times he was right next to the tree, but he ate the grass.
Yeah. What was a typical like school day like when you were at MHS? What were some of the important parts of the school day?
You know, it didn't seem any different than when I was a student, and of course I'd been a student just before I got here. I was 22 years old, just graduated from university and had gone obviously from high school straight to university. So it was just a normal school day. It'd start around 9 o'clock and be finished around 3 o'clock, give or take. Usually 6 periods a day. I didn't see anything different about it than my own experience as a student.
So nowadays we get free lunches and breakfast and after school snack. What was it like in those days?
If there was anything like that, I wasn't aware of it. I don't remember any food. I mean, I'd bring my own food for lunch, so I don't remember anything that about food.
You had mentioned earlier that you kind of went on a tangent with your English class and started a speech class. How did the kids respond to that in those days, early 70s?
Well, the curriculum that we were presented was an ESL, English as a Second Language program, and there was a set curriculum that told you what you were going to do day by day by day. And I started doing that, but after a month or 6 weeks or whatever amount of time it was clear that that curriculum was boring for the students, and many of them were far advanced and didn't need it. There were some students for whom English was their third language, and maybe they'd come from another island, from Yap or Pohnpei or someplace else, and this was their third language, and they did need English ESL, an ESL curriculum. But for most of them, it seemed like it was boring. And some of the other English teachers told me the same thing. And so I decided to do a speech plan and have the kids learn how to develop a public speech where they'd stand in front of the class and give a speech. That went pretty well, except it wasn't part of the curriculum. And so when the administration found out about it, they didn't approve.
But I mean, the kids apparently were really enthusiastic, and it even evolved into something other than speech.
It did evolve. It did evolve because the second semester I had an actual speech class.
Okay.
And about 30 kids signed up for it.
Wow.
And so we did the whole semester on public speaking and debate.
Mm-hmm. And I understand this was, because when I was in high school at MHS in the 80s, we had a debate with Mount Carmel, only to find out here in the 70s, you guys had a debate with Mount Carmel.
That's exactly right. So during the middle of the semester, we decided that maybe we should challenge Mount Carmel and see if they wanted to have a debate with us. So they accepted the challenge. And at that time, the biggest issue in the islands was the future political status. And so that was the topic of the debate. And of course, the three choices were free association, independence, or becoming a commonwealth.
Mm-hmm.
And so the debate was about that subject. And so we prepared, my students worked. I only remember the name of one of those students. Can I say his name?
Yeah, of course.
It was Henry San Nicolas.
Okay.
And he was one of the students that participated in that debate successfully, as I recall. So the debate was held at Mount Carmel. We brought in people from the community to be judges. And much to some people's shock, the public school students won the debate.
Was that the first debate that you were aware of?
I don't know.
Oh yeah, but definitely.
Yeah, I don't know anything about what happened before I got there.
I think that's pretty extraordinary because I know in Carolinian culture also, like we're not really always big on standing up and making public orations about our position. We have a different way of communicating things. So the fact that, your kids wanted to do that and got up and did it, that's great. What do you feel? Oh, that kind of leads me to ask, it's interesting that the kids were also being educated on the political status negotiations, and do you feel they had a good understanding, or the public had a good understanding of that?
Hard for me to answer that. I don't know what the public knew. The kids were certainly aware of it, and it wasn't anything I had an opinion about. I just let them express their opinions, and it was the topic of the day, so they were certainly aware of it.
You said you lived in Oleai, and you were particularly close to one local family. Can you tell us a little bit about them and your relationship?
Yeah, that's true. I lived on the street that the Oleai San Jose Church is, where that intersects with the hospital road, the road that goes up the hill to the hospital. And
now the college.
Now the college, and there's a hospital's up there too, isn't it?
It used to be the hospital, but yeah.
Okay. And right across the road from me was a Carolinian family named Olaitaman. And Dionisio was the father, Patricia was the mother, and they had a lot of kids. And those kids adopted us, and Dionisio adopted us. It was his goat that came and ate my grass, and occasionally I'd borrow his lawnmower, and his children were at our house daily. And I am Facebook friends with about 5 of those children now, to this day.
What did you learn about the Carolinian culture from them?
Oh, about the culture.
Or culture is pretty much everything.
I would watch Mom walk across the road every day and go out in the boonies and come back with a load full of wood to cook the food on the lean-to kitchen behind their house. I knew that Dionisio worked as the custodian at San Jose School, at the elementary school. I learned that they had a farm that's down the street where I understand some of the family still lives on that farm. And they had animals, at least one cow or maybe a pig back there, and also fruit trees. And they managed all those children on the salary of a custodian and what they could get from their farm. It was quite amazing.
how does it feel to still have like connection with the children of Uncle Dionisio?
You know, it's amazing. I came back to Saipan for a visit after I graduated from law school. It was in January 1977. And when I arrived, Dionisio, father, there's a son, Dionisio, also,
Yes.
had carved a beautiful storyboard 4 times bigger than this one. I still have that in my house, and I've sent pictures of it to his kids. One day, I'm going to give it to one of them.
Oh.
If you see this, you can vote for yourself.
Well, you also played a part in the development of one of the first newspapers in Saipan, and we're going to take a quick break and come back and have you share that story.
Happy to do it. Thank you.
We'll be back after this break.
Looking for resources about Marianas history, culture, and more? Well, check out the Northern Marianas Humanities Council's collection. Our extensive video, audio, and photographic library can be found on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram at 670 Humanities. Or check out the written resources on our website at nmhcouncil.org. And for those who prefer a good book, we also have a selection of local publications for purchase. So, dive in, explore, and share your comments as we navigate the human experience together.
Welcome back. We're chatting with James Peter, a former Peace Corps volunteer here in Saipan. Jim, Micronesian Star was the first newspaper. Oh, anyways, tell us about how you got involved with starting the first newspaper in Saipan.
Yes. So, as I said earlier, my original job when I arrived was to be a teacher at Marianas High School. In the middle of that year, I and my wife started volunteering at the newspaper, which was had been started by a Peace Corps volunteer named Mike Malone.
Uncle Mike, yeah.
Who was in the group just before mine. He arrived in 1969, a year before me. And we would go down there 1 or 2 nights a week and just help out. And in so doing, Mike started to teach me the ins and outs of how he ran the newspaper. I think getting me ready perhaps to take his place when he left. And so, for example, on Monday, we'd go sell ads. So I'd go visit Joe Ten or Joe Screen, who was his main man, or I'd go visit Townhouse or the various other businesses who bought ads from us and sell them ads, find out what they wanted in the ads. And the second day, Tuesday, we'd start to try to gather whatever the news was going to be. We'd try to do some work of our own, but we'd also fill up around the ads with stories from the MNS, Micronesian News Service, the government news service that the TT government ran at the time.
Okay.
And then Wednesday we'd start writing the articles, and mind you, we had to type those articles at least 3 times on an IBM Selectric typewriter, because we had to first write it and then edit it, because it's never right the first time, and then we had to make it fit in a 30-space column. So we'd type, Dateline, Koror, Palau legislature, and then we'd go / to justify it at the end of the line into a 30-space line. And we continue doing that. And then we'd have to come back and type it again. And the third time through, we would leave the spaces in between the words instead of at the end of the line. And at the end of that process, you'd have a justified page that you could cut out and lay out, and it would look like a real newspaper.
Wow. Do you recall how many copies you were circulating, or
Yes.
where you were circulating at that time?
We printed 800 copies, and we circulated them at all of the big stores, Townhouse and Joe Ten, and then all the little mom and pop stores in the villages.
And was it free, or was there a charge?
It was 10 cents.
Oh, wow, 10 cents. How did you make editorial decisions on what you were going to cover or what you weren't going to cover or what the top story for the headline was going to be?
Well, what we covered was all the news that fits, we print. All the news that fits, we print. So we put the ads down first because the ads were what allowed us to actually run the business. And then any news that fit around the ads, that's what we'd.
Was there much crime happening then? Nowadays, like crime always makes the front page. What was making the front page?
We had a police blotter. And
okay.
I or Mike would go to the police station and find out who got arrested, and we'd write that and have a little column that
short bullet points,
yeah.
What were people interested in reading back then?
Oh, I don't know. Whatever we printed.
Okay.
I did a couple of articles. I took a trip to the Northern Islands, and I wrote probably 3 different weeks about the trip to the Northern Islands. Mm-hmm. One of the priests from Mount Carmel, a young priest, I don't remember his name, although I have his picture on my phone, really had a lot of information, a lot of knowledge about the Northern Islands and their history, and so he told me a lot. I borrowed from what he told me. I also wrote a series about some World War II Japanese soldiers who did not surrender after the war was over and were on Anatahan Island until 1951. And I met a man who worked here for the Land Commission named James Johnston, who had been the naval commander on Saipan in the early 1950s. And he's the one who figured out a way to get these people to surrender. Mm-hmm. So he told me the story, and I said, that's an interesting story. I wonder if people here remember it. Maybe some of the older people did, but not most of the people who were alive at that time. So based on his recollections and some Navy material and some other news stories that he shared with me, I wrote, I think it was a 3-part series that was in the Marianas Variety, later published in the Micronesian Reporter and a couple of other publications, called Odyssey on Anatahan.
I think there's a movie and a book, at least one movie and book about that.
That's right. I have the book. I haven't seen the movie.
So the Micronesian Star, actually you were able to hand that off to a local resident.
Yes, and that transition occurred beginning of 1972. In January 1972. But there's a backstory to that. While Mike and I were both still working there, but Mike was transitioning out because his Peace Corps time ended in June of 1971, and he got a job with the Pacific Daily News. Abid Yunus showed up on Saipan and somehow found out about us and came and visited us and shared his amazing artistic talent. And suddenly we had ads that were fresh and vibrant and funny, and and so he volunteered at the news at what was the Micronesian Star for a number of months. And when Mike left, Abid had met a local girl named Paz Castro and married her, and so we were able to, or Mike was able, because it was his thing, to turn it over to Abid, and Abid changed the name from Micronesia Star to Marianas Variety News and Views. I stayed there until, in 1972, until October, when I left. And before I left, we recruited Victor Pangilinan to come to work there, to take my place. And after that, I don't know what happened, because I was gone.
How do you feel your time here in the Marianas affected you as a person and your life trajectory?
Well, it certainly affected my life greatly. I learned that helping other people and doing something not necessarily for money, but because it's the right thing to do, is a good way to live your life. After I finished law school, I went to work for the government as a prosecutor. I worked for 38 years, first as a state prosecutor, and then later as a federal prosecutor, mostly handling domestic violence, sexual assault, child exploitation, homicide, crimes where I was advocating for a victim.
Mm-hmm. You're still involved today in something that is very much like the Peace Corps.
I am. I actually have 2 volunteer jobs right now. I told you about one. I'm on the board of directors of a domestic violence shelter in Oregon. I spend more time, however, on a volunteer project called A Better Vietnam, teaching English one-on-one online with young adults in Vietnam. It's a volunteer program both ways. We have about 25 teachers from around the world who volunteer for the program, don't get paid. The people who run the program in Vietnam are all volunteers, and the students don't have to pay for the classes.
Wow.
It's a great project. It's like doing Peace Corps from your living room.
Perfect for the season in life.
Exactly.
If you could share a message with our viewers and listeners here from the Marianas, having been here before we became a Commonwealth and returning today, what would you say?
I don't know if I have a message. I've only been here now 3 days, and I walk around and I see a lot of empty stores, and I see hotels that are closed, and I see playgrounds behind hotels that are derelict. The economy is really suffering here. I feel very badly for that. Obviously, I can't do anything about it. I don't know that I have a message per se, but I'm happy to be back. I've sent pictures to some of my family and said, it looks just the same. Everything is the same when you look out at the ocean.
Yes. This side looks the same.
The roads are different. The beach road is like a freeway now. I hope the young people don't drive on it like it's a freeway, because that's...
No, they're okay.
Yeah.
For the most part.
And there are a lot more roads around the island than when I was here. Certainly the development has changed a lot in 50 years, but of course it has everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much for making time to chat with us today. Any final thoughts before we go?
No, I've got 5 or 6 more days here. I hope to see more people that I knew back in the day, and enjoy more of the culture and the fine people of the Marianas. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you for your service, and so happy to have you back. Our guest today has been James Peter. He's a former Peace Corps volunteer here in Saipan from 1970 to 1972. And this has been part of our series interviewing a bunch of volunteers who have come back. This has been your Humanities Half Hour. I'm Catherine Perry.
Your Humanities Half Hour has been made possible in part by a major grant from the National Endowment for the Humanities. Democracy demands wisdom. Any views, findings, conclusions, or recommendations expressed in this program do not necessarily represent those of the National Endowment for the Humanities. For more information or to share your thoughts, contact the Northern Marianas Humanities Council at nmhcouncil.org or on social media at 670 Humanities. That's 670 Humanities.